So, you're looking for something different? Well, you found it. Right here with expat entrepreneur Jewel Daniels. Pushing boundaries on the solopreneur journey, where we're all about learning to build beyond just business. Let's get it.
Hey, it's so nice to be with you today on the solopreneur journey. I'm Jewel Daniels, head of Daniels Communications Global, a leadership development firm that specializes in executive coaching, cultural competency, and of course, developing the best in you. I'm also the author of 4 books, with my latest being 3 Sides of Every Crisis. It's a really important book that talks about how do you find opportunities in the midst of a crisis by learning to adjust your perspective and to pivot. And that's what we're going to dive into here on the Solopreneur Journey. This show is all about reaching out to those who are single, shingle, one-person enterprises that are starting at the starting line, but are running the race towards something spectacular. That's why we say it's all about building beyond just business, because building a business, being a solopreneur, transitioning to an entrepreneur, and becoming a business owner means that you have to practice everything from being a good leader to understanding how to collaborate, price your goods and services, and even practicing excellent emotional intelligence. So that sounds like a lot. It's going to be so good. So this is what we do. We invite entrepreneurs to come on our show to share their stories, to talk about how they're getting through this crisis. And then we also invite those who are doing exceptionally well, who have built their businesses from being a solopreneur to something extraordinary that can benefit you. So come on, take the ride. Here we go. Welcome, Ms. Jean Cox Turner, to the Solopreneur Journey podcast, coming in from Atlanta, Georgia. It's so nice to have you with us.
Well, thank you for inviting me. How are you today?
I am doing well, particularly because I have spent a lot of time interviewing guests, but today I'm interviewing someone who I know so intimately, and we've had a long friendship. So this is different because I've watched your journey. I know how passionate you are, how hard charging you are. So to be able to sit in the seat to tell or have you tell your story with me is nice.
Wow. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. And indeed, it is quite a ride, let me tell you. As you know, even before, the last few years, we've seen some things.
I've seen some things. So I was preparing for this interview and I said, okay, I've got to stay focused because there's so much, such richness to your life. So my focus is going to be on the solopreneur journey. We started this podcast really because of you, which makes this even more interesting. Right? Yeah, it makes it even more interesting.
Because whatever I said, I didn't realize that it would, morph into your podcast journey. So congratulations, first of all.
Oh, well, thank you. So I'll let our listeners know, after writing my book, 3 Sides of Every Crisis, and talking with Jean, who had read the book, and she was sharing with me about how she found some things in the book that were helpful. And I shared with her that I also had this other book that spoke to the solopreneur journey. And she had entered into this space of being an entrepreneur and being one of those single shingle business owners, and said how it would be good if I focused some of my attention on solopreneurs. And I thought about that because in a time of crisis, particularly, innovation just explodes. And I started getting more inquiries when I actually put the question out there. And that's what led to my decision to start this podcast. And what better way to kick it off than with the person who was the inspiration behind the podcast?
Wow. And I'm honored and I'm grateful. Wow.
And your story is such a good one, Jean. So, what I'd like to delve into, I often ask people the question, when it comes to entrepreneurship, did it find you or did you find it?
That's a good question. Um, it actually found me. And so, in the beginning of 2018, January of 2018, December 2017, January 2018, I had just finished a certification course as a health coach because I wanted to add, some more value to my 33-year nursing career. And I've always been passionate about health and wellness. And so at that time, I would have to say I found it, right? Because I just got the certification. I was really gung-ho about helping people because I lived a very healthy lifestyle, never been sick, sick as in sick and in the hospital and those types of things, was on no medication at over 50 something years old. So I was like, yeah, let me just go ahead and go full throttle, right? And then I had a health challenge that forced me to have to terminate that business that I had started then because I didn't have the energy. And so now as I rebrand and rebuild, I have to say that it found me because the transformation of what was to what is now is even blowing my mind. I had no idea that it would turn into an enterprise because that's the word I heard in my spirit of a warrior life enterprises, which is really comprised of several different things. So
because I remember the days of when you wrote your first book. It's a time to testify, right? Yes, I
right,
remember when
that
you.
was back in 2001.
Yes. So it's funny when it comes to entrepreneurship, sometimes people don't even realize that the seeds are being planted. And because you don't see the full blossom of those seeds that are planted, you're not even aware of it. But perhaps that's where the first seed might have germinated, so to speak, and this was tilling in the soil.
Wow. And it's very interesting the way that you put that because recently, something that dropped in my spirit just recently one morning about how one plants, one waters, and even with a seed, right? That the seed is planted, but it may not grow overnight. It has to be watered, right?
Yeah.
And it may take some time to actually see the growth of that seed that was planted. It may take watering over time.
And that's
That's
exactly
interesting.
right. And the other analogy I think about is, as you know, we are both New York girls. So people hear our accent. It shows up. New York girls that found their way in the South, which was interesting for both of us.
Who would have thought it, right? Who would have thought it?
Who would have thought that journey? And when I think about the soil, I've come to realize since moving here to Jamaica some 8 years ago, sometimes the soil also, it's not soil, it's dirt. And what I mean by that is if I took the same seed and dropped it in the United States, in the area that I was living, perhaps, it would not bear fruit because the soil and the content it just wasn't ready for it. But anything I drop here in Jamaica, I mean, I dropped a seed one time in the crack of my driveway and a watermelon came from that with no effort whatsoever because the soil was ready. So it made me
Wow.
think about your journey that now the soil was there versus the dirt.
Wow. And now the soil is right. It's ready to produce. Is ready
Yes.
to produce the fruit or whatever it is it's going to produce, whatever the creator would have it to produce is ready. Wow. Now see, you're going a whole nother, we flowing now. I love it. You would be so proud of me because I'm learning to not be as rigid, right? And so I'm learning to flow and you are really flowing now because I'm just like, look, like, based on what we discussed. I'm like,
but that's the way I see the manifestation of the Spirit of a Warrior brand. So it's this umbrella that houses the different parts of what has happened as a result of you planting seed in fertile soil, and now they manifest. So let's talk about the fact that you have written a couple books, a journal. You've got some things going on. Tell us what was your first big project?
well, it goes back to 2001 with A Time to Testify. And who knew that 17 years later, right, going through a health challenge, right, that it would drop in my spirit these words, the spirit of a warrior. And at the time, I just happened to have been journaling my journey as I was walking through my health challenge, and little did I know it would become a book to be written in my journal over the 9 months that I was going through the chemotherapy treatments. I had no idea. I just heard in my spirit one night, spirit of a warrior. And I remember popping up out of jumping up out of my sleep. Yeah, I was just journaling. That's all I was doing, journaling my experience.
Wow.
And so that morphed from the spirit of a warrior, Gene's self-care journey through chemotherapy, to his story, her story, God's glory, which I co-authored with my husband, which is the sequel to Spirit of a Warrior. And also, guess what? The remix of A Time to Testify has been updated. I call it A Time to Testify, the remix.
Wow.
And so, right. And then on top of that, I was given the vision to write several mini workbooks, self-care journals to accompany the health and wellness education programs that my company offers.
Oh, wow.
All of that in the 9 months that I was going through chemotherapy treatment.
See, that's why I say so much innovation comes by way of a crisis. And sometimes it's because it's forced upon you. Sometimes it's because you're placed in a season in which your focus shifts and your attention is placed so that this can make space for itself. The fact that you were able to co-author a book with your husband, let me say, I love that title. That title, it gives me chills. It gives me chills. So when you were walking through the journey of your health challenge, when did you and your husband decide, and why did you all decide to write that piece?
So I just woke up one morning. Again, I hear things in my sleep. I hear things in my spirit, right? And I asked him if he wouldn't mind just writing everything that transpired from his purview. And he agreed to do it. And he actually got it to me really, really fast, like maybe 2 weeks later. And so I then went on and wrote what I knew what had happened to me during that hospitalization. And then he didn't know it was going to be a book. I kept that as a surprise. So when I did the virtual book launch this past May of 2020, this year, I introduced it to him and presented it to him online during the virtual book launch. But it was already dropped in my spirit. Our Creator already dropped it in my spirit to do it. Mm-hmm. So he was surprised with everyone else who was tuned into the virtual book launch.
That's incredible. What a way to do a book launch. What a way to do a book launch and to have that connection with your husband. What has that meant for your journey as a solopreneur, to have him be part of your foundation and to be part of creating something that comes under your Spirit of a Warrior brand?
I mean, phenomenal, because this was the first, because being active duty military, traveling around the world and always being involved in everything that entails. And for the longest, I was a bachelorette and he was a bachelor. You know, we're married. You know, military life. A lot of times you're living in two different locations. So this was the first project that we have done of this magnitude, and we've been together for 24 years, married for 22 in January. But yeah, like that type of project, because my husband's not even in it. You know, he's a retired military man, like whoa. So
Yeah.
it was totally something new to him. So it's phenomenal, and to introduce him into a world to where he was not privy to, or I just didn't think he would. He never thought he'd be an author.
Yeah.
So yeah, phenomenal. And you know him; he always let me do my thing, support what I do.
Yes.
But
Oh,
yeah,
listen, this may not have to do directly with you as a solopreneur, but it does deal with you intimately. You have one of the most
yes,
supportive partners that I know. And that is such a blessing. And he's supportive of you as you are supportive of him. And that
right.
partnership is such a tremendous example of what love is. So let me say that about the two of you.
Thank you so much. And an example of what love and marriage is
Yeah,
has been ordained to be like.
absolutely. And just like building a business, you know, marriage is like building a business, meaning that it always has these peaks and valleys, these ebbs and flows. And that's one of the important things I think solopreneurs have to come to understand,
Yeah,
because you have a great idea and you know that people can benefit from that idea, and you get this energy and passion around it, and you give it to the world, and it doesn't return to you the response perhaps that you're looking for in its immediacy. How have you dealt with that?
wow, that's a good question because it seems when you're first starting out, and like I really am, like I've really started to go full steam ahead with rebranding and rebuilding, um, and it can be discouraging. But I'm learning, because I'm learning as I go through the process. I'm learning to that sometimes you just got to take a step back. Sometimes you just got to take a step back, be still, and just listen for me, and whatever it is for you, and for who will listen to this podcast. For me, I have to take a step back and lean more into my spirituality to get instruction and direction, because I'm learning that when I take a step back and lean into that which gives me strength and where I find clarity from, then I'm able to rethink some things or just listen for that still small voice, and then I can move ahead. But it gets very discouraging. Like even now, I'm like, I'm doing all this work, I'm putting in this time and money, you know, the resources that you put into it.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, I'm waiting to see the fruit, the manifestation, like where, but you know, I'm learning that all things in its proper time and its proper season. So, however that is for you, you have to lean into that. And sometimes it just takes being able to just step back for a moment. And you know how I get. People think I'm very extroverted. I'm not extroverted. I'm very introverted. And you might
Yes.
not hear from me for days, weeks, or months. I will step back and I will separate myself, isolate, because I need to focus and hear what I need to hear, do what I got to do. You
Yes.
know how I do.
Yes. And that's a very valuable point for people who are starting in business. And it can be difficult when it's just you. And that's why the solopreneur journey is titled the way it is, because you're walking that journey alone, in the sense that you are carrying the vision for what it is that you want to see unfold. And there may be people who come along the way, but you're the carrier.
You birthing it. You a midwife. I don't care if you're a man right now, you a midwife and you birthing that baby that you have the vision for.
Yes.
Ooh, and them labor pains. Ooh.
Are tough. They are plenty
Girl,
tough along the
girl.
journey. And it keeps, to me, it's the cycle of what we talked about when we started this conversation about planting the seed. Because the seed gets planted for your idea, and when it's in fertile soil, it germinates and it buds and you see it, and then you start creating it and you bring it forward. And so now that you brought it forward, you have planted that in another environment. So the seed first was for you and your idea and your vision. And so now you've given birth to your idea and your vision. And now you're planting that in the universe, waiting for that seed to germinate. And that does become a bit challenging for solopreneurs. But one thing that I see that you have done very smartly is you found partners. And solopreneurs don't understand that while it's you alone, you've got to collaborate. So I see you have designers and others. Tell me about how you decided to do that and how you found them.
Well, first of all, I learned from the first time around back in 2018 before I terminated that business. And a lot of that, of course, was due to the fact I was still working full time. I was still active duty, right?
Yes.
And really didn't have the time to invest, right? Because we know resources more than just monetary. It's time as well. So I learned from the first go round, and I was like, I can't do everything myself. I've got to, yes, you try to learn and glean what you can on your own. But look, none of us are robots and none of us are an island. There are times you've got to reach out to the SMEs, the subject matter experts, the SMEs, right? I know good and darn well I'm not a graphic designer. I know good and darn well my degrees are not in business and marketing. I am a registered nurse who has a master's in healthcare management. So how do I look trying to be marketing? That's not my lane. That's not what I was gifted to do. And so we're not an island. We're not an island. We have to know the talents and gifts that we've been blessed with, and we need to, seek direction and seek out those who can contribute their talents and giftings to help us to do and carry out the vision.
That is so powerful. And I don't know if you remember this or if you were there. There was some time ago, because we used to attend the same church some years ago. And I remember there was a visiting pastor. I can never remember the gentleman's name, but I remember he said, the lesson will continue to be taught until it is learned. So along this entrepreneur journey, like you said, you learned from the first time. I've been there too. I learned how to course correct. And solopreneurs, entrepreneurs have to understand that that is part of the journey. You're going to make some mistakes. You'll have some false starts. But it's like anything in life. Sometimes you have to learn by way of that lesson. And you get it better. You get better at it when you continue. Right. So what has been the driver that has caused you to not give up?
Well, I honestly, let me say this. We don't know how resilient we are until resilience is one of our only options. Ooh. And so I learned a lot during my health challenge.
Good.
That spirit of a warrior, that fighting spirit that's in me that I never knew was in me. I thought we from New York, so we fighters anyway. Mm-hmm. But that right there alone, I took what was in me. I had to dig deep within me, right? Back to the New York days, back to that fighting spirit in me, and just be like, look, you done been through this health challenge. It was not in vain. There is a message that you are to get out. There are people that you have to reach, because for me, it's not just business, it's also ministry. And so I can't separate the two. So, and truly, honestly, if the truth be told, I have gone full steam ahead since the health challenge. I think a lot of it has to do with, my retirement, my recent retirement from the Army, and, the fact that I desire for me and my family to have multiple streams of income. Because if one thing I've learned from this pandemic, and then in reading your book, we cannot rely solely on a job or a career. You cannot solely rely on yourself. You just got the you
That's
just
very true.
have to rely. You have to rely on a high. I rely on God. I'm just going to say that, who I rely on. I have to fall back on my spirituality, and we have to step out and just do whatever it is that is placed in our hearts to do, that vision, that dream, and do it with our whole heart, do it wholeheartedly.
And I love that you said that. And I'm glad that you spoke the word of God, because both of us are strong women of faith. So even when I was writing my book, it's a funny thing, this entrepreneurship, because so many things continue to reveal themselves over time. And when you talk about things happening in a season, I had been asking, what is my next book? What is my next book? Waiting for years, a big gap for it to come. And in this season of crisis, I had the time, I had the focus, and he revealed the vision for what the book needed to be. I kept asking, I wanted to write about all kinds of things, but until he says, you can do it. You can do it, it's going to be wasted time.
And money and other resources.
So you might as well be obedient and listen to what he says. And like you said, you had to step back. You had to go inside yourself, listen and trust yourself. And that's something that is a critical piece of being a solopreneur, is trusting yourself. And that's why I write about, you can't depend on any institution. The best bet you can make is on you, and you betting on God. And that combination will see you through it, because no matter how long you in a job, whether it be government service or private industry, somebody gets to say how long you stay.
Hello, that's right. That's right. Because check it out. It wasn't my desire to go ahead and retire.
Remember.
Last month.
I remember.
I was supposed to make full bird colonel.
Yeah.
That was my next rank. I was going to do another 3-4 years.
I remember.
So that wasn't my desire.
Yeah.
But look
what it revealed. Look what it revealed.
It's the seasons. It's the seasons. It was not the season for your book, for your next book, until when it was released. It wasn't the season for though. And look, what was it? What is that? 17 years since my last book, and then I end up writing 2 books, remaking the other book, the original A Time to Testify, and I've written 5 mini workbook journals. And I'm talking about in that span of them 9 months between September 2018 and May of 2019. Well, no. September 2018 through March of this year, because His Story, Her Story, God's Glory. Yeah, just finished March of this year. Yeah.
And to me, that is the best example of, sometimes, you start one way and you release a thing, and people are looking at trying to measure, because that's the way we all have been taught, is the measuring stick, and we're measuring it against what we see other people do. And that can be dangerous. When it comes to business, you should always know about your competition, because you want to learn from what they do. You want to understand what kind of market you're going into. You want to know what makes sense. But to measure what is uniquely designed for you to give, that one book in 2001 and this season of 2 years, what has now manifested, is incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible. So what has been your biggest misconception coming into running a business?
Time. It involved, my biggest misconception involved time, because I had no idea the first go round about the amount of time and consistency, that it takes in building a brand and building a business. I had no idea. And so when I think back to the first time, the first attempt at business, again, I was still on active duty, full time, 24/7, hua soldier, right? So it was more like every now and then side hustle.
Yes, it's true.
That's the truth
It's true.
Mm-hmm. That's the truth of it.
Yes.
You know?
That's very true.
And yeah, I wasn't thinking about ministry side of it, because anybody in healthcare, I know me as a nurse, right? I believe it's a calling. Whatever you are destined to do, whatever you set out, it's a calling, and you have to look at it like that. And so I didn't see it then as a calling, how what I've been gifted to do and set on this earth to do as a calling. This is what I'm here to do. And so I did not, for the life of me, weigh the cost of the time and consistency. Consistency is key. Now that I'm retired, every day I'm doing something regarding business, regarding my ministry. Every day I'm doing something.
I'm so glad you said that, because one of the major misconceptions people have about starting a business is, I own my time, I don't work for anyone else, I can spend less time than I do, I'm already putting in 40 hours. Well, when you own that baby, 40 hours is a blink.
That ain't nothing.
Because it becomes organically a part of who you are. So even when you're going to the grocery store, something you see will trigger something, a thought about your brand, a concept about what you can do, who you should have called. So it just organically becomes a part of the DNA of how you operate. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, I'm like, oh my goodness, like now I am constantly thinking podcast, coaching sessions, education programs, how I can get it out there better, particularly with the podcast, because that's every week I've got to be prepared for that. Who's going to be my guest on the show? And that, like, the planner in me, like some things you can flow with, but I plan a month out who is going to be on my podcast the following month for those four Thursdays the following month. Like I'm already in that mode. And it's funny because just the other day, and I don't know if you had an opportunity to go to my Fit Foxy 50 and Beyond social media page on Facebook, where I did the virtual celebration of life, my virtual birthday celebration. Yeah. So now it popped up, man, I should do that for my Sunday self-care sessions. Incorporate some music in there, and look.
Yes.
Because we on lockdown, right? We're in the midst of a pandemic, and people really want something to do and something to take their minds off of that. And so when I presented it to my girl Shay, she was like, that's what I was going to tell you to do, because we all had such a good time.
Yes.
And it was virtual.
Exactly. And it's funny, what I hear and I see in you is two things. One, the skills you acquired from being in the military, that discipline, that order, that focus, that time management, all of that have been useful to starting your business. And two, now you're being stretched and you're using your New York style, your excitement, the music, and all those things come together to build a brand.
Oh, it's funny you should say that word, stretched. Oh my goodness. You know how many times I have heard that from spiritual leaders, stretch, that word? Oh my God. Okay, go ahead. Yeah. Just flow with it. But you're right, because to me, the podcast was stretching me. I'm like, what? Like I never would have thought in a million years. But when I heard God tell me in my sleep, I heard Spirit of a Warrior Life of the book. And then probably about 2 months ago, I heard Spirit of a Warrior Life Enterprise for my business and my brand. I did not know all of that was going to fall up under that umbrella. The educational programs, the one-on-one health coaching, the books, the podcast, Health Chat with Coach Jean. You wouldn't have told me in a million years I'd be a podcaster. I've been wanting to, and when I was going through my health challenge, I was thinking, wow, it would be nice to be, have a podcast about what I do, but I didn't have no idea that was going to manifest, like none.
What an incredible journey that you have been on. And that's why I wanted to talk to you, because I think you really are the best example of solopreneurship, how you transition from a full-time job, not just a full-time job like some people have in private practice, but you were an Army soldier, a nurse who was on the front line overseas in foreign countries, helping to save lives, keep people healthy, bring them back home. Transitioned to the United States, working inside a very different environment, had a health challenge. Talk about battle and the comeback, the spirit of a warrior, and now you've built this enterprise. So it's the perfect example of how people can come into entrepreneurship as a solopreneur, and the direction can be different. Some people start off with the umbrella and then build the pieces. You built the pieces and then put the umbrella on it.
Wow, that's spot on there, and without even realizing it, without even realizing it. But again, when you step back and you listen for that still small voice and listen for the divine instructions and the way to go, that's wow.
Yeah.
It'll blow your mind. Like even now, during our discussion, it's blowing my mind because I'm thinking, I'm seriously, like I'm hearing you and I'm thinking, my God.
You're seeing it.
Yeah. I'm seeing it.
When you're working in it, it's hard to see it. And I think that's on purpose, because for some people, if you see it as you're working in it, it'll scare you. It can scare you, and sometimes people allow the fear to stop them, and they never realize their full potential. I don't even talk about people realizing their dreams anymore, right? Because it's a dream. What's really important is realizing your full potential and using your gifts in the design in which it was meant to be, so that it feeds and fuels you and serves others.
Yes.
And that's exactly what you're doing.
Tapping into that potential.
Yeah.
Right.
And in this process now, what has been the most challenging thing for you, Jean, in running a business? What has been the greatest challenge?
Honestly, a lot of it has to do with my lack of skill.
That's fair. That's fair.
It's my lack of skills, because like I said, I'm not a marketing person. Like, you can't, it's hard to go from strictly nursing or being a healthcare professional and providing care, right? And providing health education. Like at first, all I wanted to do, I just want to bring awareness. I just want to educate. I just want to inspire. I just want to teach, And so the most challenging thing is making that transition, that shift, if you will, from that. And you're really not shifting to, like in what I do, I really haven't shifted totally or made a full transition. It's taking my skills and talents and my experiences and just, I guess you could say, shifting them in a new direction, so to speak. So I don't know the business. I'm still learning the business aspect of what I do and what I've been doing for 33 years. So that's the most challenging piece, I believe, is now I got the healthcare side down. I've been a healthcare professional for 33 plus years. It's incorporating that from a business, with the business side of it. Is my most challenging. It's been most challenging for me, and still maintaining what the overall purpose of what I'm doing is, because yes, It is ministry. It's not just business. It's not just entrepreneurship. It's not just being a nurse and a health coach. And it's ministry. And so I'm also finding it challenging to, because when it comes to charging and sending out them nice little invoices, and because I have a giving spirit, I'm a giver by nature, that becomes kind of challenging too, because as much as I want to help people, look, this is a business, and you ain't going to Macy's and nowhere talking about a discount or what you can get for free. No, I recently in the last month learned to say no. I offer that in my one-on-one coaching. I offer that question to answer that question you're asking me in one of my educational programs. If you want free information, then tune into my Sunday self-care sessions or listen to Health Chat with Coach Sheen podcast.
Very nice.
That's one of my little videos I do every now and then. But other than that, no. So.
But that's a great example of, when it comes to the answers yes and no, it has two faces. The yes is saying yes to your gifts, your talents, and the fact that you have the opportunity to do this. And the no, so that's the yes facing yourself. The no faces others who will try to take advantage of you or ask you for those discounts. And I will be honest, I've been doing leadership development for over 20 years. And no was hard for me as well. No was hard for me when it came to, because you have a giving spirit, and that's probably what links, one of the many things that links us as friends and as, women business owners, is that you want to give, but if you give out everything, then your bucket is empty. You won't have anything else to give, right?
Exactly.
You will be empty. So what I learned when it came to the money piece, and I do it to this day, I had to separate myself from the money. And what I mean by that is I had to have somebody else. It started off as my cousin. I gave her the responsibility to chase the money, to do the invoicing, to do the follow-up. And that was because I was often in the presence of my clients. So I do leadership development training. So I'm going on site and I'm seeing the same client because I'm still doing the work, and I know they haven't paid. And some of them would say stuff like, "Oh, Jewel, we're working on that invoice. Don't worry about it." And I had to teach myself to say, "Oh, okay, well, Angela, Tarika, whoever was responsible for it at that time, I'm sure they're on top of it, And I actually told one of my clients, I don't chase the money of this because then it causes me to lose my focus and how well I can do my job. So whatever's happening with the money, my contact in my office will be there with you. Now, make no mistake, I was on top of my money. It's just that I couldn't get into that conversation with the client because it became uneasy. So let somebody else chase the money for you. Yeah, is what I learned.
Yeah, and that's good. Separate myself, and for other solopreneurs, separate yourself from the money. Yeah, but it's like you said, it's not like you don't know what time it is.
Right. Yes.
You know what time it is, and you know what's going on.
Of course you do. Of course you do. And I remember when my company was in the States, and I remember one time there was a young lady working at the front desk, and we got a check-in from one of our clients. And it was a nice sized check. And she could not believe, wow, look at this check, Miss Jewel. I didn't know that we were doing this well. I said, honey, go ahead and give me that check so I could go into the bank because I got bills waiting on that check. Because people have misconceptions about what you're bringing in because nobody's looking at what you have to put out. And that's a reality for solopreneurs in all businesses.
That's right. And unfortunately, it takes money to make money. So, someone had posted something on social media. I just saw it early this week. It said, billionaires have spent millions to be billionaires.
Oh, that's good.
Millionaires have spent thousands to reach millionaire status.
Wow.
So in other words,
Yeah.
you're going to have to spend, you're going to spend something in order to, you're going to spend money to make money.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. And
It
when you're small and you're
it
starting
is what
out,
it is.
it's a reality. And it depending on what type of business you have also will influence where you get your money from. So if you're small and a solopreneur, especially if you have a service-driven company, my best examples have been to try to use what you have available to you before you start
Mm-hmm.
borrowing from banks and lenders,
Right,
because it takes time, right, to see
right.
the return on it. And you don't want to get yourself in a situation where you have big loans, and you're hanging on the hope that the revenues will come in. That could be a tricky. So is that what you did? Did you try to use most of your revenue first to start your business?
I use no, I have not. I refuse to take out loans or none of that. I've been blessed to where I have, I'm good. My family's good. That I can invest a little something, something without having to go the loan route.
Right.
And then I'm learning to use, social media has been huge with getting my brand out,
Mm-hmm.
believe it or not, and all for like $10 to run a 5-day ad or something. So, especially with the podcast, yes.
Yeah.
So no, and I'm not going to go that route because I don't have to go that route because I know who I am and whose I am. I'm not going that route. I'm not.
I love that. I love that. Yes.
Oh,
I love that because I think this is a different season. When we were younger, I remember people always saying, use somebody else's money. And that, personally, that always scared me, meaning go to the bank and get a loan. Because I would say to myself, well, suppose I don't make what I need to make. And one thing about the banks, you don't pay them, they're coming. And I couldn't
they're
sleep
coming
at
out.
night. Yeah, with that thought in my head. But now there's so many other options available, like you mentioned, social media, the ads on Facebook that you can run on LinkedIn, YouTube, and it's at a price where you can enter the market. It's price prohibitive. It's no longer price prohibitive. You can do things in small bites.
Right. But again, it takes that consistency. Like every day, I've got to be doing something
Yeah,
to promote every day, even if it's just a new Facebook ad, but you got to be doing something. That's
yeah.
one of the lessons I've learned. I got to be doing something.
And because I was wondering how you were doing during this pandemic, but you answered the question, is that you always are working on your brand and you're consistently tweaking what you're doing and adding elements to strengthen your brand so that it appeals to different markets. So tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Okay. So, Health Chat with Coach Jean originally started as a 10-minute segment on someone else's radio show. And so after about a year doing a 10-minute segment on someone else's radio show, the producer contacted me and said, I was really hoping to get a show like yours, on the air. And, we talked and would you be interested? And, I had to pray about it. And you know me, with one thing, we're loyal, right? So the person who gave me the opportunity to be on their show, I wanted to talk with them, let them know what's going on, let them know I was praying about it, and just see where, I would be led to go. And I felt that I was being led to go ahead and do it. And so I had that discussion with them. They gave me their blessings, and the rest is history. The first Thursday in June this year was the first episode, and now I'm pushing episode 20. I just had episode 16 this past week. So
Congratulations. Congratulations. And where can we listen to the podcast?
So it's Health Chat with Coach Jean. It's on every Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It can be found on Spreaker, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeart, and now it is on Pray.com, which is the third largest app in the world.
Now that is a time to testify.
Look, who would have thought it? Oh, I mean, he knew, but
Yes.
yeah, I'm in awe. I'm really in awe.
There's a lot to be in awe about, and that's why I think I know your journey is a great example of what solopreneurs go through. And you're still a part, you're still in that season of growth. And that's what people have to understand. Whether you are a solopreneur or you could be a large enterprise, this crisis has shown us how large companies that make millions of dollars crumbled in a matter of days, right? So everyone has
Yeah.
this journey. So being smart about how you engage your public, being ethical. I love the example of how you spoke to the person because that person gave you the opportunity. And it's funny when you said, we're loyal. I think that's also something that you just learned being a New Yorker. Loyalty is important. And even when you have to
Oh,
take
yeah. There's
you know
consequences for not being loyal in New York, let me tell you.
it is, and there are consequences, and in business there are consequences because what people don't realize, you don't have to create an enemy. It's all in how you do the dance of massaging that relationships. Relationships are the new currency of business. So the fact that you went and had the conversation, the person has to be understanding that you've got to take your chance. You were riding in one lane and now you need to take your independent lane just as they once did. And when you do it
Right.
that way, decency and order, ethics, loyalty,
Come on.
you
Come
land on
on.
on a station that's the fourth largest in the world. That's what happened.
Love, love, love. You could do it. That the congregation we used to be a part of. What did he always say? If you do it right,
Right? God will bless it
God will
right.
bless it right.
Thank you, ML Jackson over there. Yes, and that Baptist
Yeah.
Church in Nashville. There it is. There it is. Yes. Yes, he did say right.
Yes,
And
it
we've carried that with
is.
us all these years. That's why it's so beautiful to
Yes.
have this conversation with you because often when you're interviewing people, sometimes you don't know them intimately.
Right.
I know you
Right.
intimately. I know your journey intimately. I've been a part of it. I've been distanced from it because of,
Yes.
just time and distance does that kind of thing to you, but I've never been away
Life.
from it.
Life.
It's
Right.
life.
And life just happens and we get caught up in life and what's going on. I mean, life
Yeah.
happens. We all get caught up.
Yeah. And I thank you so
Yeah.
much, Jean, because I wanted my listeners to also see that this, meaning the relationships within your circle, also help to sustain you as an entrepreneur. You gotta have
Yeah.
strong relationships and mentors.
Yes, most definitely. And let me tell you, we've known oh my God, it's been about over 20 years now since we've known each other. Back in the days, back in Savannah, GA, with Black Business Professional and Entrepreneurs
Yes,
Conference.
yes.
Yes. And I've watched you. I've watched how you do business. I've seen your business. Like to me, it's just always been growing, 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 going up, 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 up. If you've had any challenges, I don't know about it,
Oh, I've had
but
them.
and how you were able to just move and maneuver, even with, transitioning into a new life in Jamaica has been just phenomenal, just phenomenal. So
Well,
yeah, so you're one of my mentors. I mean, this transition from Army and continuing as a healthcare professional, but now knowing that I have people like you as mentors in business,
mhm.
that I can continue to watch and lean on and just glean
Yeah.
from. It's amazing. So God always puts the right people in your path, and I'm very grateful for I think it's been probably about 21 years now.
It's
our
amazing.
friendship, our sisterhood. Yeah, yeah.
I am thankful
Absolutely
for it
amazing.
as well. I truly, truly am, because that's the village. Ah, maybe it takes some time of growing and maturing and getting that wisdom that you realize how important your village is in your, not just your growth, but your sustainability. Because you can grow in your business, but your business doesn't always love you back the way your friends and your family will.
Right, right, right. Because that's a good point, because growth and then there's sustainability, because a lot of the businesses have grown, but even now in the midst of this pandemic, are they sustaining? Have they sustained the test of time?
Yeah.
So that's a very, very, very interesting point that you bring up. Growth is one thing, but sustainability is totally something else.
And you have represented all of that, from your journey as a Army officer, which was incredible to be a woman who has grown through the ranks in the way that you did, not just as an Army officer, but you were also an Army wife, the mother of 3 sons. You've got grandchildren. You play so many roles. You wear so many hats. From the cap that you put on because you are running a race, because I know you used to be a runner, that you love so much running, to when you had to put your Kevlar on and your hard hat. That's, to me, the best representation of the spirit of a warrior. So I thank you so much, Jean, for having this conversation with me, for sharing this with our listeners. Please tell them some more about where they can follow you and find you.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for having me on the show. I'm just enjoying it. I hate that it's coming to an end, but again, I am Jean Turner, registered nurse, certified health coach. I can be found at www.spiritofawarrior.life. You can go there, find out more about me, my journey, my story, find out more about the podcast. Go ahead and find out and purchase the books, the self-care journals. And look, we all have challenges in our life. And if you are going through some type of challenge with your health, or even if you just want to maintain prevention and continue to live your best life, which can only be living your best life and be healthy and strong, hey, drop me a line, leave your information in the contact box on my homepage, and contact me and reach out. And again, that's www.spiritofawarrior.life.
Thank you so much, Jean, for being a part of the Solopreneur Journey podcast, where we try to bring tips, testimonies, and triumphs to those who are listening, those who have embarked upon this journey of knowing what it feels like to be an entrepreneur, what it looks like to be an entrepreneur, and how it is to live this entrepreneurship life. We appreciate having you, and we hope good things for you in your future, knowing that they will manifest as they have now and they will beyond. Until next time, listeners, it's so good to have you with us. And make sure that you check in with us. The new episode drops every Tuesday morning, 7:30 a.m. Take it easy.
It's been another great time spent with you. Thanks for joining this episode of the Solopreneur Journey with expat entrepreneur Jewel Daniels, where we love being your ear candy. Let us hear from you by dropping a note at www.thesolopreneurjourney.net. Remember, you may be working on your single shingle enterprise, but you're not alone. See you next time when we push boundaries to build beyond just business.